We're talking about a well that's 13,000 feet into the ground. It's 5,000 feet below the surface of the water, 18,000 feet all the way down to where that oil is. With the oil company BP has cracked through 13,000 feet of rock. The pressure from that oil well is now coming up to the surface. I've talked to people. I'm not sure there's a good chance. This guy from BP on the Today Show said 6 chances in 10. I don't think his face looked like 6 chances in 10. He looked like about a 1. And my concern is, what can the federal government do if it looks like BP isn't up to this job? They haven't been up to the job of deciding how to drill that well. They chose to go with seawater rather than with drilling mud, and therefore they caused this problem by all likelihood. The problem is, why do you trust a company to do this job, or do we just have no alternative?
I'd say 2 things about that, Chris. One is they're not, everything they're doing is in concert with teams of scientists. As you know, Stephen Chu, our Secretary of Energy, is a Nobel Prize-winning physicist. He's been deeply involved.
I only know what I read in the papers.
In this effort, along with scientists from our national labs, as well as scientists we've recruited from around the country and the world to help on this. Problem is, as you suggest in your question, this is an extraordinarily complex problem.
I only know what I read in the papers.
Maybe I'm looking for confidence that you can't give me at the White House.
Every scientist in our government, from the top down to the labs, everyone is working on this question. You know, obviously, it's not just left to BP to decide what the answer is, but the question is, when you say, what are you going to do about it, it suggests that someone else would have an idea that they don't have, and the fact is we're exploring all the ideas right now.
Is there a point at which BP cannot be trusted to fix this?
They have to, under the law, everything they do, we have supervisory authority over. As I said, Dr. Chu and others are deeply involved in the decision-making and the planning and the strategy.
I only know what I read in the papers.
Let me explain to you what my skepticism is based on. Years ago, I studied the oil pipeline industry. I did a long investigative piece and discovered that when you really get into the interstices of the federal government, there's really no real regulation. It's all self-regulation. There's really no real regulation. It's all self-regulation. The federal government really relies on the oil industry, as you are now in this cleanup, to do the job, because you assume the profit motive will discourage leaks, will encourage this cleanup. The profit motive doesn't always work, and I'm just wondering, no matter how much money they're willing to lose.
Let me ask you this: what would the rash? First of all, I'm not relying on them. When I have questions about this, I ask Dr. Chu.
I only know what I read in the papers.
The scary thing is that they have the ability to drill down at that depth, 18,000 feet into the ground, as I said, 13,000 into the ground below the surface of the water, and they can go down that far to drill, but they don't really have the capacity to handle safety. That safety didn't come first. At any point of the way, safety didn't come first. Profit came first, and my fear is that they don't have the capacity to solve this problem, and that's why I'm pushing so hard here.
I understand that, but the question is, if anybody else, if there are other experts in the world who have the capacity, that we would bring that to bear, and BP would gladly accept it. They're not rejecting ideas. They've not rejected any ideas. Dr. Chu embedded himself in that operation. They took some of his ideas. That's some of these remedial things, or some of these things to expedite the killing of the well, come from him.
I only know what I read in the papers.
So, you know, it's frustrating, it's dismaying, and you're right. You know, the reason the president appointed a commission was because it's clear that the way the industry has been regulated in the past has been inadequate when it comes to safety.
Okay, let's hope that the 6 in 10 chance is a good chance this week in what they're trying. But I do believe, and I don't mean this comically, I'm very frustrated as you are, that they're in over their head, and I mean it literally. Thank you, David Axelrod at the White House.
Good to be with you.
Joining me now is Mike Papatonia, who has filed a class action suit in 3 states on behalf of fishermen, oystermen, and other business owners affected by the Gulf spill. Mike, thank you for coming back. That thought I had, it wasn't meant to be clever. They're in over their head. I don't know, based upon a long conversation today with Bob B., who knows this stuff, the guy from Berkeley, that they have the capacity, that there is any existing capacity to stop this leak.
Well, you know, I have great respect for David Axelrod. I know you do too, Chris, but it's wishful thinking. What we just heard is wishful thinking. Look, the bad news is you have people like Matthew Simmons, very well respected, says unequivocally that you can't stop this leak. You can't stop the leak because until the 2 pressure gradients match up, until the well goes dry or until the pressure gradients match up. He says you can talk about it, it sounds good, you can put a 4-inch pipe in there and tell somebody you're doing something, you can talk about Dr. Chu and what a clever man he is, you can talk about this wish to get along. But the truth is, if you believe Matthew Simmons, Simmons was the energy advisor for George Bush, for God's sakes. This is not a tinfoil hat moon bat. He says this won't stop. I hope he's wrong, Chris, but I hate to hear the talk coming from David Axelrod like we're all in this together and everything's going to be okay. There are two different issues here. Stop the leak. The other issue, though, is clean up the mess. They know how to clean up the mess. Back in Saudi Arabia in 1994, they had a $700 million gallon spill. And you know what they did, Chris? They brought in tankers from all over the world, and they sucked it up out of the bays, and they treated it. And you know what? They cleaned up 85% of it. You know why? You know where those tankers are right now? They're filled up. They're waiting for the market to change so they can go unload in Asia, in Europe. Those tankers have the technology and the ability to suck it right out of the water and treat it. They're two different issues. The leak may never stop. But for Axelrod not to address the real problem, the entire Gulf Coast is dying because right now Obama has the bully pulpit. You want to know the most effective thing Obama has control of? That's the bully pulpit. And he needs to sound like Huey Long right now, not Gandhi. We're tired of the Gandhi speech. We're tired of Kumbaya. I'm tired of the David Axelrods saying we have Dr. Chu and we're going to solve this problem.
I only know what I read in the papers.
You can't even taste the anger down here. It's beyond belief. People are angry about the fact we have brown pelicans so soaked that they have to hobble around on their knees. They can't even fly. Pelican eggs found in Louisiana nesting grounds that are completely destroyed. Virtually impossible to clean up those areas. 65 miles of shoreline is covered in oil today, Chris. Cleanup workers are being hospitalized because of the toxins involved. And Axelrod tells us that he's trying. Look, I respect David Axelrod. I respect Obama. But we have to be honest with ourselves. He needs to use the bully pulpit to do what he does best. Sound like Huey Long, not like Gandhi. And you'll see those tankers come to this Gulf.
Well, Huey Long had some strengths, and one was that he could rabble people up when they had to get rabbled up. And here's the question I have. If you're right, and that seems to be right, that they can't solve this problem, that all this talk is from about they're going to go down there and try to fix it in this week, and they're going to have a 6 in 10 chance, and maybe they'll get around to it in 2 months, is all BS from BP. If that's the case, then this is horrific. Have you any idea how much oil will come out of the ground? I'm estimating if you just double what's come out already, because it's 2 more months of 1 month's effort, we're up to almost 200 million gallons of oil in that, in that bay, in the Gulf. And if you figure it's never going to stop until it's empty, how much oil is that?
I can't give you that answer, but I can tell you this
millions thing.
Look, our people are telling us, based on the photos, the camera work that they finally saw at the bottom of the Gulf, that it could be as high as 4 million gallons a day. And you still have BP, and you still have the government talking like it's 250,000 gallons. They know it's not. But why is there this relationship between government and BP? This is a corporate felon. These people are people
you know
we
what
can't
I think the answer
believe.
is? Once again, we've allowed us, too big to fail. We've got it in the oil industry now. The only people we can go to is the oil company that caused the trouble to solve the problem. It's like getting Al Capone to clean up Chicago. I mean, it's just unbelievable. You're asking it. Anyway, Mike Papantonio, thank you, sir. I think you're right on the emotional level. I think you're right on the facts.
More than a month since the BP oil disaster started, no one knows how to stop the oil leak, how much has already leaked, how much continues to leak, where the oil is, how to prevent it from reaching the shore, how to clean it from the shore, or why the Obama administration keeps giving out environmental waivers for more drilling, even after the president said there would be a temporary moratorium on new drilling. For oil. It seems like this disaster has proven that we clearly can't prevent a blowout or cap a blown well at even 5,000 feet. Even since the deep water sank, we've had a handful of drilling applications excluded from environmental permitting that are for even deeper water. It just seems like we've now proven it's not safe to drill this deeply because we don't know how to fix it when things go wrong at this depth. How could we ever approve this going forward unless there's some major technological advances?
Well, I don't know the details of what was approved and not approved. I only know what I read in the papers. Yes, the government is a big bureaucracy, and I hope that's been fixed.
Dr. Stephen Chu, U.S. Secretary of Energy, thank you very much for joining us. I know you're incredibly busy. You're on your way back down to the Gulf. A lot of people counting on you to add some real intellectual firepower to the effort to stop this thing. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Thank you.